Welcome back, everyone. We've got an exciting deep dive today. We're going to be looking at the life and influences of Father John Pappan of Holy Trinity Orthodox Church.
Oh, fascinating.
Yeah, it's going to be great. We've got some excerpts about his life and the lives of his, well, you could say spiritual mentors, kind of like a spiritual family tree. And we're going to see what we can, learn from all that.
I like that spiritual family tree. It's a great way to think about it, really.
Yeah.
And especially with someone like Father John, um, even just his own background is quite interesting. I mean, you sent over his biography, and it mentions he has degrees in biology and business, pastoral studies,
Wow.
even drug regulatory affairs. That's quite a diverse academic journey.
It is. Yeah, that's what really caught my eye too at first. It's like, I mean, we all have our interests, but his seemed to span from, science to business to theology.
Yeah.
I'm really curious, was this like a winding path for him, or did he always know he would kind of weave these fields together?
Well, that's where it gets interesting. The bio mentions that he felt a calling to the priesthood when he was just 10 years old.
Wow, at 10.
Yeah. But instead of like immediately going to seminary, he pursued these other fields first. It's like he built this foundation of knowledge in the secular world before diving deep into his spiritual calling.
That's a good point.
What do you think? I mean, do you think that worldly experience might have shaped his approach to ministry?
I mean, yeah, it makes you wonder if his scientific and business mind um, brings like a unique perspective to his religious leadership.
Right.
Like maybe it's part of what makes his vision for the church for the future so compelling.
Totally. I mean, it makes me think about the whole idea of spiritual fathers, even more intriguing in his case.
Right.
The excerpts you sent over talk about the impact they had on him. Before we dive into their stories, can you remind our listeners, what exactly is the role of a spiritual father in the Orthodox tradition?
Of course. So in the Orthodox Church, a spiritual father isn't, just a biological parent. It's more like a trusted mentor, almost like a spiritual guide, I guess you could say.
Okay.
They offer guidance, support, and wisdom along a person's journey of faith. And it's a really special relationship built on a lot of trust and respect.
Got it. Got it. So in Father John's case, his first spiritual father was his grandfather, Honorary Captain Pappan. Now, his story is fascinating, almost unbelievable at times.
Oh, you're telling me. Coming back from the brink of death during his military service, and then, seeing a vision of the risen Lord that he later commissions a painting of, it's like something out of a movie. I'm sure those experiences completely shaped his worldview.
Oh, absolutely. But what really stood out to me, even more than that, was his dedication to prayer and his incredible generosity.
Yeah.
The excerpts talk about how he would pray for everyone he knew by name. And get this, he secretly donated most of his income to those in need. Talk about leaving a legacy, huh?
That's incredible. It makes you wonder, what impact that had on a young Father John, seeing his grandfather live out such like selfless devotion.
Right.
I mean, did it plant a seed for his own ministry, his own vision for the future? It's definitely a powerful example to follow.
It is. And speaking of powerful examples, we have to talk about Father John's other spiritual father, His Grace, Dr. Thomas Mar Makarios. Now, this man was a true visionary leader.
Yeah. His story's filled with so many accomplishments, all those degrees, a Bachelor of Divinity, Master of Sacred Theology, even a Doctor of Theology. Clearly, education played a huge role in his life.
Absolutely. And, it's really interesting considering Father John's own, diverse academic background.
Right.
It's like this theme of lifelong learning is woven into their connection. But Mar Makarios wasn't just a scholar.
Right.
He was also a powerful advocate for the Malankara Orthodox Syrian Church.
I was just going to say.
Back in 1958, he helped secure a historic legal victory for the church. I mean, it was a landmark moment that people still talk about today. What do you think? Did seeing that kind of leadership teach Father John anything about standing up for what you believe in?
Oh, for sure. It's like witnessing firsthand the impact you can have when you combine knowledge, faith, and the courage to actually fight for what's right.
Yeah. And what's fascinating to me is that Mar Makarios didn't just focus on legal battles, He also had this incredible vision for the future of the Orthodox Church, especially here in North America, for the younger generations who were born here. He even went on to become a professor at Alma College and received an honorary Doctor of Divinity degree. I mean, he clearly understood the importance of building those bridges between the church and the wider world.
And speaking of learning, it sounds like education was like a cornerstone of Mar Makarios' approach, just like it is for Father John. I wonder if that shared passion was part of what drew them together.
I think it's very possible. They both seem to really understand the power of knowledge, and not just for, theological understanding, but for navigating the complexities of the world in general.
So we've got these two incredibly influential figures in Father John's life, his grandfather embodying selfless devotion and prayer, and then Mar Makarios modeling this intellectual rigor and visionary leadership. It's quite the combination of influences, wouldn't you say?
It really is, and that's just the beginning. It is a powerful combination, and we're not even done yet.
Right.
They weren't the only influences in his life.
Of course.
You also sent over excerpts about 3 other figures: His Grace Daniel Mar Philoxenos, His Holiness Baselios, Marthoma Didymus I, and His Holiness Baselios Marthoma Paulose II.
Yes.
It's like we're building this whole tapestry of influences. You know what I mean?
I do, and it really highlights the interconnectedness of the Orthodox community. Each one of these individuals is like a unique thread in the larger story.
Absolutely.
So where should we pick up the thread next?
Well, let's look at His Grace Daniel Mar Philoxenos. What really struck me about him in the excerpts you sent was his unwavering commitment to safeguarding the Church's faith. He lived during a time when, a lot of religious institutions were being challenged, questioning traditional beliefs.
Right. Yeah, I can imagine the pressure he must have felt to kind of navigate all of that.
Oh, for sure.
Did the excerpts mention how he approached this challenge? Was it through scholarship or leadership or something else entirely?
Well, it seems like he used a pretty multifaceted approach, honestly. He had all those academic achievements, degrees in physics, education, and divinity.
Wow.
He definitely valued knowledge, critical thinking. And, you can see that reflected in his commitment to theological education. He saw it as this crucial tool, not just for preserving the faith, but for equipping future generations to, engage with the world, which was constantly changing around them.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like he understood that faith isn't this static thing. It needs this constant learning and questioning and dialogue to stay relevant and meaningful, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's where his leadership comes in, too. He rose through the ranks in the church, first a deacon, then a priest, and ultimately a metropolitan, overseeing an entire diocese.
Wow.
He wasn't afraid to take on that responsibility to guide his community through those turbulent times.
Yeah, it sounds like he really embodied this balance of intellect and action. The ability to think really deeply about those theological issues, but then also take practical steps to lead and protect his community.
You got it. And what also stood out to me was that his commitment to unity within the Orthodox Church. He represented his community at the World Council of Churches, attended those Pan-Orthodox conferences. He even traveled to Moscow for the consecration of the Russian Patriarch. It's clear he understood the power of collaboration and dialogue.
That's really inspiring, especially in a world that, can feel so divided these days.
Yeah, you're right.
It makes you wonder if Father John's own passion for unity, for bringing people together, was sparked by witnessing Mar Philoxenos' efforts. Do you see a connection there at all?
I think so, definitely. It's like almost watching a master craftsman passing down his skills to an apprentice.
Right.
And speaking of passing down wisdom, let's shift our focus to His Holiness Baselios Marthoma Didymus I, the 7th Catholicos of the East, and Malankara Metropolitan. Now, his story takes us right to the heart of the Malankara Orthodox Syrian Church, doesn't it?
It does.
He held the highest position of leadership, and even in his later years, he was still so active, guiding the church with this gentle hand and just a well of wisdom.
That's remarkable. It takes a really special kind of dedication to lead a community for that many years, especially, assuming such a significant role later in life.
Right.
What qualities do you think allowed him to do that so effectively?
Well, the excerpts describe him as a theologian, a visionary, and he was known for his simplicity, his wisdom, his deep spirituality. He seemed to embody this quiet strength. This unwavering faith that really resonated with people.
I can see that.
And even though he became Catholicos at 84, he didn't shy away from that responsibility at all. He actively guided the church, fostered harmony amongst its members, and really focused on initiatives that would secure the future of the church.
It's like he had this inner compass that guided him, the sense of purpose that just transcended any limitations of age or circumstance.
I think you're exactly right. And his dedication to theological education stood out to me as well. Remember that theme of lifelong learning that runs through Father John's story?
Right.
Well, it's very much present here too. His Holiness Didymus made significant contributions to the church's educational programs, ensuring that future generations were prepared to carry the faith forward.
It's amazing to see how those values, just echo through all these different individuals that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
It makes you realize that they weren't just, isolated figures. They were all part of this larger movement, this shared commitment to nurturing the intellectual and spiritual growth of the church.
Yeah.
Exactly. And alongside his focus on education, His Holiness Didymus,
Yeah.
I also really prioritized pastoral care.
Mm-hmm.
Making sure that the church was there to support and guide those in need. He understood that a thriving community is built on compassion, empathy, and a genuine desire to help others.
It's like he really embodied the true spirit of leadership,
Yeah.
recognizing that it's not just about authority, but about service, caring for your community, and meeting their needs.
You got it. And it makes me think about how all these qualities might have influenced Father John's own, approach to ministry.
Right.
Do you see any parallels there?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Father John's passion for teaching, his focus on community building, his emphasis on creating a brighter future for the church,
Right.
it all kind of echoes those values that these figures embody. It's almost like he's taken the best of their wisdom and woven it into his own, unique leadership style.
Yeah. It's really remarkable how these threads, of influence kind of intertwine and shape a person's path.
Yeah.
But we still have one more key figure to explore. The one who actually ordained Father John as both a deacon and a priest, right?
That's right. His Holiness Baselios Marthoma Paulose II. He was a remarkable leader who guided the church through some, significant growth and change. What's interesting to me about him is that he had this reputation for being incredibly honest and humble, but also very candid, almost unfiltered in his communication.
That's an interesting combination. I can see how that would make him both respected and maybe a little intimidating sometimes. Yeah, exactly. But I think that authenticity was a big part of what made him such an effective leader.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't afraid to speak his mind, and he genuinely cared about the well-being of the church and its members. During his time as Catholicos, he really focused on strengthening the church, both internally and on a global scale. He was actively involved in ecumenical dialogues, really emphasizing unity and understanding between different branches of Christianity.
Does he share that passion for bridge building that we saw in his Grace Daniel Mar Philoxenos? It's like each of these leaders kind of sort of built upon the work of those who came before them, passing the torch, so to speak, of unity and understanding to the next generation.
And His Holiness Paulose II also placed a big emphasis on charitable work, encouraging the church to really engage in social outreach and service to those in need. He seemed to understand that faith isn't just about, personal beliefs, but it's about putting those beliefs into action, making a tangible difference in the world.
Right. It's like he recognized that true leadership is about serving others, not just, holding a position of authority.
Exactly.
And that brings us back to Father John, who was ordained by His Holiness Paulose II back in 2010. It's really something to think about, these two individuals separated by generations, but united by faith, sharing such a pivotal moment.
It is. It's a beautiful testament to the continuity of the Orthodox tradition. How these values and principles are they're passed down through time. And it makes that quote from Father John even more poignant. Sometimes you have to give up everything to gain everything in order to recapture our lost glory. It's almost like he's reflecting on the sacrifices made by those who came before him, those who, paved the way for his own ministry.
That's a really profound thought. What do you think he meant by recapturing our lost glory? Do you think he's referring to like a specific historical moment, or is it something more symbolic, maybe more personal?
I think it's probably both. On one level, he's likely talking about the rich history and traditions of the Orthodox Church, that legacy of faith and leadership that we've been talking about today. But on a deeper level, I think he's talking about something a bit more universal, more human. It's about rediscovering our true potential, letting go of the things that hold us back, and embracing a life of purpose and meaning.
Hearing you say that, it makes me think that this idea of giving up everything isn't necessarily about, renouncing material possessions or worldly ambitions. It's more about letting go of the the things that prevent us from living authentically, from aligning our actions with our values.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's about releasing those attachments, those limiting beliefs, those fears that hold us back from becoming our best selves. It's about making space for something new, something more fulfilling to emerge.
So it's not about becoming a priest or a bishop or following a specific path. It's about identifying what really matters to us, what brings us joy and purpose, and then, having the courage to actually pursue those things, even if it means making sacrifices along the way.
Exactly. And what's really inspiring about this is that this message isn't limited to any one faith or tradition. It's this universal truth, a call to action for anyone who's searching for a more meaningful life. It's a reminder that we all have the power to recapture our lost glory, to rediscover our true potential, and to make a positive impact on the world.
Wow, that's a powerful message to end on. It makes you realize that this whole deep dive into Father John's life and the lives of those who influenced him wasn't just about learning, historical facts. It was about uncovering this timeless wisdom that we can all apply to our own lives.
You said it. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought. If you were to embrace Father John's message, if you were to identify one thing in your life that you're ready to let go of in order to recapture your lost glory, what would it be?
It's a question worth thinking about, isn't it? What are we holding on to that's preventing us from becoming our best selves? What sacrifices are we willing to make to live a more authentic, more fulfilling life?
The answers to those questions might surprise you, and who knows, maybe they'll lead you on your own deep dive, your own journey of self-discovery and transformation.
Thank you all for joining us on this incredible exploration of faith and legacy and the pursuit of a life well lived. We'll be back soon with another fascinating deep dive, so be sure to subscribe and stay tuned.